John, thanks for joining me. It's certainly been a busy few months for MYL, headlined by the recent resource upgrade for Baldwin. Could you provide a quick update on some of the key developments that have transpired over the past 4 to 5 weeks?
Yes, well, despite the wet season, we have managed to continue some drilling with the first manned portable rig, and we've mobilised a second one this last week. Now, these rigs can't drill deep targets, but they've been doing geotechnical drilling in the pit and testing the near-surface halo zone on Yagon Ridge, for which assays are due shortly. But unfortunately, the deep target at Yagon Deeps, which corresponds to the large and intense chargeability anomaly, well, that's out of range. We also commenced a scoping level mining study to look at underground mining for Shan, Mictha and China Deeps, and that work is well advanced. But the scope of that study has been broadened to also look at open pit expansions and recommend which is better, as we now have a new ore block model and a resource exceeding 100 million tonnes, which is all quite close to surface. And I look forward to sharing the findings of that work in due course. But a great deal of work's also been going on behind the scenes, less visible to shareholders, and it's being completed in recent times, including documentation for the Myanmar Investment Commission permit, advancing the definitive feasibility study, progressing financing and offtake discussions, issue of the Environmental and Social Impact Assessment Scoping Report to the Myanmar government, and commencement of formal negotiations for a new, longer tenure lease for the joint venture. So it's a super busy time, and I'm really appreciative of the ongoing support from our shareholders.
Okay, John, so I'm sure you've heard this previously, but certain investors will view Myanmar as a risky jurisdiction, even though you've made it very clear that MYL has de-risked the development of Baldwin at almost every level. What can you say to potential investors that may be looking at investing in MYL, but could be holding back due to perceived sovereign risk issues?
Well, let me start by saying that our track record of delivering project milestones is the best evidence that sovereign risk in Myanmar is not as significant an issue as some may perceive. It's fair to say that many operators of projects in Australia or other first world jurisdictions would not be able to do what we've achieved. Since acquiring an option over the Baldwin project just 2 years ago, over 23,000 metres have been drilled, and we've moved from zero to a 100 million tonne JORC resource over that time. And we've conducted geoscience, engineering and environmental studies. We've delivered the China Pit scoping study, which was followed a mere 7 months later by the pre-feasibility study. And you simply cannot achieve these milestones in these timeframes if sovereign risk is encumbering project operations. We have over 2 years of evidence now that this is not the case. So I would say that delivery of results is proof that our methods to manage risk are effective. And when I think about sovereign risk, I have 3 questions that I always need to answer. First, can I get it? Which is about establishing a legally enforceable title. Second, can I keep it? Which is about fending off potential challenges such as governments that might seek to renationalise or third parties looking to unseat us and grab the asset. And third, can I actually build and run it here? Which involves getting the community on side, dealing with NGOs and other interest groups, and working through the red and green tape in a timely manner. And by the way, this is the main component of sovereign risk for companies looking to develop projects in Australia. Witness the Carmichael mine saga. Now, our joint venture, our contracts, our discussions with government and stakeholders, and even our shareholder base within Myanmar Metals have all been structured to answer these 3 questions in the affirmative. For example, we have deliberately chosen not to capture as much project equity as we could. Under Myanmar law, this would be up to 80%, and it was more important for us to have capable local partners who can substantially de-risk our operations by their relationships with the Myanmar government and their experience of operating successful businesses in Myanmar and particularly in the Shan state. Now, we've achieved that, and at the same time we've also dealt with the single biggest nationalistic argument. And we've structured the joint venture contracts so that the Baldwin lease is held at all times, and it's never transferred from one company to another, and that avoids points at which there may be a challenge. Having a very supportive cornerstone shareholder in Perilia Limited, a wholly owned subsidiary of China's largest integrated zinc and lead producer, Zhongjin Lingnan Nonfermet, also provides an important layer of risk protection in a region that forms part of the One Belt One Road infrastructure build. So a little bit of exposure to China Inc. in this way deals with many potential issues. We've clearly positioned Baldwin with government as the flagship project, so our goals and interests are very closely aligned with theirs, even more so than a lot of people are giving us credit for. And in return, the Ministry has been extremely supportive. And in regard to security, Baldwin is in a region which is yet to see the Myanmar unification process unfold, and from time to time there's been unrest in the region. But people are building mines all over the world in similar circumstances, and as professional miners, we are very clear on how to manage. We always default to safe. If our protocols don't give a green light, we just don't travel to site. So we have never encountered any security issues at Baldwin or the nearby town of Nam 2, but we have been vigilant and implemented those safety protocols that are designed to protect our people. It's also our belief that developing a mine in an impoverished area and creating employment opportunities will go a long way to improve the livelihoods of local people and ultimately enhance security in the region. Those things go hand in hand.
Thanks, John. And just finally, as you mentioned there, since you've been in the chair, you've managed to assemble the BJV by bringing to the table two very credible in-country partners. You've established a very good dialogue across multiple tiers of government. You've increased the Baldwin resource to over 100 million tonnes, delivered a very successful exploration program, you've commenced DFS studies, and you've kicked off project financing negotiations. So what in your mind will be the catalyst over the next 12 months that re-rates MYL's valuation?
Well, a significant de-risking event on the horizon is the granting of the Myanmar Investment Commission permit. So this will authorise our foreign investment in Myanmar, and in short, it's the permit that allows us as a foreigner to bring in our circa $300 million to build, own and operate the mine, extract the metals, sell the products and, after paying the government's share, keep the profits. It's also the head permit for the full suite of regional and departmental approvals that you need to build a mine in Myanmar. So, for example, import and export licences, power generation and transmission permits, road transport licences, explosives permits, and potentially a tax holiday for up to 7 years, which is very attractive. Now, there is a lot of work that goes into the MIC permit submission, and this work is nearing completion. We're seeking to obtain our permit early in 2020, and at that point, the project has an official legal status in Myanmar. It won't be overturned, it won't be undermined or somehow lost to third parties. Also, it's the trigger that brings us under the protections of the ASEAN Australia-New Zealand Free Trade Agreement, which provides for arbitration and compensation should there be any breach of the trade treaty to which both Myanmar and Australia are signatories. Offtake and project financing discussions are underway, and unsurprisingly, we're seeing interest from some of the top metal trading houses, smelters and financiers, reflecting the underlying quality of the Baldwin project. It's unrealistic to imagine that a company could bring a globally significant silver and lead production stream online without attracting the attention of the largest players in these markets. We're seeking an executable financing package about midway through next year, so I think there'll be plenty of news on this front as discussions mature. But even though Baldwin is already in the highest echelon of silver-lead projects in the world, the Baldwin mineral field is still vastly underexplored, and I'm really excited about the chance to follow up on the high-grade copper discovery in ER Valley with drilling in the coming months, and then we have the opportunity to look at some very exciting targets which have not yet been drilled but look very promising from our geophysical surveys.
Well, John, that's a fair body of work to be focusing on over the next 12 months. So, look, thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing how things progress.
No problem.